Thanks a lot, Leo. I want to use this opportunity to say a big thanks to Leo, Queenie, and his team for the wonderful job they did in this conference. It's been a great experience so far. So, before I get started and Pratik is joining us, so just to set the kind of context and wake you up, guys, how many of you have Kindle here? And how many iPads? Android tablets? You guys use it for reading books? Okay.
How many
See that?
pairs and how many female kids do that?
We'll get into that more later on. So just to kind of like a very high level read on where we are and why we are like these 5 people sitting on this side is that what has happened in the last few years, right, in terms of technology change and why are we even talking about reconfiguring the book, right? Why change the story format, which has been there for thousands of years, right? So a few things have happened in the recent time. I mean, the industry term for that is kind of like the SOLOMO, right? The social, local, and mobile, right? And that's primarily driven by the big launches like iPhone and iPad, which kind of set the stage and expectation in terms of how the content experience should be done in the new world. So with the social thing, I mean, you're connected with your friends, reading stories, sharing during reading, and just kind of like including the whole friend circle in the story reading consumption experience. And then you have this mobile. I mean, anytime, I mean, there used to be a time when we will stand in the queue and feel bored. I mean, now nobody gets bored standing in the queue. I mean, people just pull out their smartphone, start reading either the story they've been reading or some news. So that's happening, and also this whole notion of location awareness, right? So, I mean, it's not fully explored yet, but I think in the near future it will come that how the immediate geography can play a role in kind of like redrawing how the story should be delivered. So that's kind of like the very high level technology shift happening. And just to put some numbers out there, there have been like research reports saying that there will be some 110 million tablets by the end of 2012, and roughly some 40 billion apps getting downloaded on the app stores. So, and having worked with many publishers in this room and talked to many people, apps kind of like in a small unit capture the frustration and pain of dealing with technology, right? It comes with promises but never delivers, right? And we can talk about why. And if you guys have any war stories, this is the audience to kind of throw at, right? And the last point I want to share is that, and this is just my personal frustration about this whole thing, is that we fail as a community of either innovators or people who are like trusted by the rest of the market, that they will be bringing new technology, new thinking. But when the piracy is the bullet number 1 in your slide deck, I think you're failing the community, right? And time after time in publisher meetings, I mean, the piracy and DRM has been kind of like the number 1 point, right? So God bless readers, right? So and not looking at USA, because I mean, time and again I get this feeling that we don't want to be compared with what's happening in US and UK. And my response has been like, I'm not asking you guys to compare with what's happening in those countries. Let's keep focus on China. Right? China has a good comparison. They have their own language issues. They have their own ambition, similar scales. They're doing really well, right? So I don't know what's the reason we are still kind of stuck in this mediocrity, both in terms of content creation or reader creation. Things are happening. I mean, wonderfully. I mean, we have Mango Reader, we have Dilip and Pratik and Jade. I'm going to talk about that. But I mean, we are like 1.2 billion population country, right? But if you can list on your finger the number of people who are doing reader and aggregator, I think it still calls for like good effort, right? So with that note, I will just let each of you introduce yourself and then tell them how you intend to kind of like change the game and then world-changing idea and all that.
We usually start from the middle. Hi, I'm Jay Zende. I've met a few of you, the rest of you that haven't met me. I, along with Jayashree, run a relatively new company called Bookstock Audiobooks. So that's books talk, like people talk, books talk. We started this company about 18 months ago, and I'll get to why we started this in just a minute. We're talking about reconfiguring the audiobook and reconfiguring the book, and most of the conversation around here is going to be about using digital and technology. We kind of go the reverse direction, in a sense. For us, all technologies will be relevant, but we're just going back to the most basic aspect of a book, which is telling a story. So our motto, in a sense, is to have a story for every year. We feel like the core joy of a good book is that it tells you a story in one form or the other. Even if it's an information book, it tells you a story, and that's what you enjoy most. And that's what we aim to do, tell books as stories. And quite simply, it's a conversation, it's a style of in content consumption that most of you are probably familiar with. It's a book that has been narrated. We work with major publications, major publishing houses, Penguin, Harper, Westland, and we started, one of the main motivators for us to start this was we felt that as we grow a little bit older, somewhere in the 30s, this thing hits you when you have family, you have work, and you don't really read as much as you'd like to. So I'm guessing a lot of you agree with that sentiment at some level. And we looked around us, and I came from the typical IT, BPO sort of environment, children, all of the good stuff. And we were thinking about, hey, we used to really read that much more, and nowadays there's not much of an opportunity. And I went back at some point of, as an individual, to a stage in my life. Someone, because Paransky earlier talked about P.L. Deshpande, and I grew up listening to P.L. Deshpande narrating his stories. And it was a wonderful harkback saying, hi, that was an amazing experience. Why don't we do that any longer? We all enjoy listening to a story, but that's not really available as an option. So to cut a long story short, we decided to explore that. We looked around us and found that there's a lot of current content available in audio, just not in India and not for Indian languages. What also drove us is, I'm guessing a lot of you will have experienced a situation where you speak your own mother tongue, but you don't really read it any longer. We were talking some time back that a good measure of how fluent you are with your own language or writing it is how large the letters you are when you write it. As you get less fluent with it, the letters become larger and larger. It's like a 4-year-old writing. So we figured that was something that was happening very commonly, and it was very sad because I think we're almost the last generation that actually grew up speaking our mother tongues more than we spoke English. My daughter almost exclusively speaks English, although we speak to her in 3 languages and she speaks them as well. So the sentiment that we feel, somehow the warmth that comes out when a Kannadiga listens to Kannada, or a Bengali listens to Tagore being narrated in Bengali, is just a very different feeling. And that's what we also wanted to bring back. So we started off by doing something very, very simple. We took popular books, we got about 35 of them. We worked with either the author or the a professional theatre actor to have them narrated. So it's kind of the joy of Subrata Bakshi narrating his life story to you is obviously going to be somehow more enjoyable than just reading it. Not to discount the joy of reading it, but stories like that. And at this point of time, we feel we are still kind of chugging up the technology curve. Technology is going to be great for us to get more and more people to enjoy it. I'll tell you a simple example of why. A 200-page book is about 6 hours in duration, and at a reasonable voice quality, it ends up being about 150-200 MB for a 200-page book. Today we sell as MP3 CDs. For a lot of the people over here, CDs still exist, and people still listen to them. 98% of our content consumption is done on CDs. It's widely consumed. But there is a very small section of the population worldwide, like even in the US, just 19% of people actually move content from CD to a phone or an iPod. So it's that low. So it's very important, obviously, for us to get content onto cell phones, mobile phones, apps, all the devices that we just talked about. And we hope to leverage a variety of solutions, and we'll talk about more about those as we go, to make this content available to you readily. Whether you're standing in a queue, enjoying your lovely commute right behind the same bus that you see every morning when you go to work, or working out or whatever else that you mean, and you can quickly download something and listen to it. So that's the goal for us. Like any person anywhere in India can understand his or her language. It doesn't matter which language it is, and we'd love to get stories to them in that sort of way. So that's essentially what we do.
who's going next?
Hi, I'm Jagdish from Mango Reader. So, Mango Reader is a fascinating name for a lot of people, and it took me a lot of time to come up with the name. The idea and philosophy behind the name really goes in a couple of ways. So, India is a country of mangoes. Mango has a name in Hindi, it's called Aam. Aam is again in English called common. So, it's a reader for common people, really reaching out to the masses. That's the one philosophy. The other philosophy really goes that, so apple we all know mango. So mango is a fruit that's actually better than apple. So someday, that's the long-term philosophy that the company
We need to have a sub-brand which is Alfonso.
So, and that's very true actually. The other reason is that when I picked a brand for a company, somebody, I did a session on branding and they said that a brand has to motivate you every single day for you, if you work for a company. If you don't wake up 6 a.m. in the morning and like you stay awake, there's no reason working for a company like that. So that's what Mango means to me, and that's what we try to do when we try to build the experience of our products and everything. So initially when we said Mango Reader, we bring books to life, and the idea really is that we don't really sell books, we sell experiences. So like coming here, it was an experience for all of us. We learned something. I think all of us came here to learn something, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. If we learn something every day in whatever form, by listening, by reading, by watching, by interacting, by experiencing, is what counts. So with that goal, since we started Mango Reader, before this I was working in an educational video game company. We were making video games for physical and maths and science. In US, very happily, nice six-figure, maybe more than that, paying job, director of engineering. I realized that so games were so much fun. I used to love games as a student, as a kid in college. And the moment we started putting content into them, the games became boring. So the problem was definitely not with games, but with content. So that's why I thought of, okay, let's solve the problem, not in the roundabout way, but straight on. And then the iPad came, the other devices came. So we thought, okay, let's make the content fun. How can we make it fun? Let's make it more engaging. So there's a book. It was done for paper before. Now let's do the book for the device. So if somebody comes and says that I have a book and how do I get it on the iPad, that's actually a wrong way to think about it. Because that's not how you should think about creating the book. You have to think about how can I build an experience for this content on a device? How can I engage my user by involving their senses? So on a book, you cannot touch something. You can flip pages, but there's nothing happening there. You're only involving two senses, which is which is hearing and visualization or reading. For a device like this, you can engage more senses, a touch, feeling, or whatever. So that's where we thought that we can actually make a better experience of delivering content, be it a book format, be it an audio visual, or whatever. So I'll try to show you a demo after a few minutes once we have some sort of technicalities to solve here. I'll need a book as in a laptop which can show a webcam, and I'll show my laptop demo from there. So can somebody can provide that to me. Anyway, so we started working with, so again, I'm not from publishing background. I didn't understand anything about publishing. I have around 29 years of experience in learning. I'm 29 years old, so I've learned over a period of 30 years or so. I spent 15 years of my life taking the biggest risk in my life, going to school, not knowing what will come out of this essentially. But I think that's all. So it's like the whole system, and then we decided that we'll focus on education and learning per se, because education in India, or for that matter anywhere, everybody has their own thoughts on how to fix it, whatever. But nobody has really taken steps as such, and even Steve Jobs, he had education as one of his focus areas, not to do something about it. So currently our focus has been to make interactive textbooks, storybooks and kids books. So I've done that with kids. I've given it to my nieces, nephews, friends, schools, and colleges. You gave them a book which is a Mango Reader book, and you gave them a print book or a PDF, and you can see the way they interact. You can just see the joy of them touching those characters, the audio being narrated to them, the words being highlighted. They play and pause the same book. They spend like 10 times reading the same book again and again because they are so engaged with that entire content. Compared to a PDF where they'll read through it, or probably somebody will talk to them and they'll keep it back again and they'll find fun, start playing games. So that's where there is an opportunity and there's competition. So it's really hard to get kids to stop playing Angry Birds or motocross or whatever, and have them read books. So from that perspective, when I say that Mango Reader, we have been trying to build an ecosystem. So I come from technology background, I have no idea about publishing, but that also brings a new perspective. I'm new to this whole industry, I just meet people, try to solve them in my own ways, and try to figure out that works for these guys. DRM again, as Bridge said, DRM is actually not something which is good for publishing, but publishers don't understand that part, and probably they will never understand this part. And in one of my last presentations at IIM Ahmedabad, I said that publishing would be dead if they considered going back with DRM, and people who are really frowning upon that statement. So like everybody, it's like there's different ways to think about how can you deliver content. So one way is that if what the devices. So I as a kid never read books because I didn't have access to books. I grew up in a village. My parents really couldn't afford books apart from these textbooks which were given in school. Now I can, and everybody in my family and people around me can afford books. There are a lot of people who can actually afford these books not because they are, or even if they have a device they can afford because they are either freely available as PDF or pirated in whatever format. I'm telling you, go to any college in India, every student has all the print books available in digital format, and they are not paid a single rupee for that. Similarly to how they have all these songs which are ever released in the history of India, and they'll always have without paying a single rupee for that. But at the same time, what that means is that people are reading books now. They're reading more and more books, which means there's more opportunity to sell to these guys better content in a better way. So on that note, really, basically, as in there are different ways to explain how can they reconfigure a book. And as Dr. Davies very clearly said that books shall never die. Books contain a lot of wisdom in them through language or whatever medium we can express that. And when you think of the digital, the devices, it will rethink the way we think essentially, and we have to unlearn the way we have been doing things so far, learn this new way and embrace technology as an enabler instead of as an obstacle, and try to create an experience. So to give another analogy, let's say if somebody were to say, here are 2 tickets for Goa, and if somebody says that here are 2 packages for Goa, which will take you to 3 days of nice hotel and a beach and a tour and whatever, which one are you more likely to buy?
Tickets.
Again, the cost depends on the vendor, depends on the pricing also. I mean, the price comes here, like somebody will say, whatever, or whichever way. But I'm sure at the end of the day, it's the experience that counts. You write reviews about things because you like something. If you don't like, you write bad reviews. So it's the human intention of expressing themselves, experiencing, and learning happens from experiences. Whatever I'm speaking something now, it has had my experience with interacting with people. So that's why I can relate with people. So it's like at the end of the day, if I can sell an experience, that's much more valuable to an end user compared to just selling a book or calling it a book. So even I sort of call universal experience books, which sell an experience, and that's where we play with the pricing. So I'll let others speak, and I'll come back to the demo later on to give
Yeah, so we have a bunch of questions specifically for you in terms of how the storytelling examples you can share in terms of like saying Pratham books, I mean, what you added to make it more compelling, and how was the response from the reader side, right? So we'll come back to that. So, Dilip?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dilip. I co-founded a company called Great Minds Media Solutions. It's just getting to be a year old now. Myself, I'm a co-founder of Jibin Pharmacies here in the room. So we founded this company. Our friends had come back from the US. They are Bengalis. They were trying to get Bengali books for their children to read on their tablets, Nook, etc. And they had a lot of problem in getting good content. When they came back to India last year, we kind of started looking at how can we make some way of converting the existing content in Indian languages into forms that can be read across all platforms, across your mobile device, your PC, your internet, iPad, Android device, etc. And that's how we set up Great Minds Media. So I think things that we have done since the last 12 months, we developed our own e-publishing platform called ePubMix that supports all the formats such as EPUB, Mobi, HTML5, Kindle Fire 8, EPUB 3, etc. Still under development, but we've used that to create ebooks for Malayalam, Tamil, Hindi and English books from small authors, small publishers. We have not worked with large publishers because we were quite small last year. But we continue to work on this. We have now evolved ourselves to create science, technology and management books in Indian language and English. We have now an iPad app platform for delivering news, magazines, books, etc. So I think the way we have worked this, since we don't come from publishing and we are not subject matter experts, we have kind of talked to a lot of publishers, authors to understand their problems, see what they need rather than ask a big fee for converting ebooks. We have more or less been partnering with authors, converting their books more or less free of cost, just so that it helps in our platform creation. We have helped people distribute to Amazon, Apple, Sony Reader, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. People have made, our authors have made money by selling their ebooks, and we have taken a small share of it. But I think we have been kind of working with the small regional language authors and publishers. Since I come from Kerala, I work with a lot of Malayalam authors and small publishers to help them kind of understand how they can move from the print publishing approach to ebooks in their workflow, or if convert their content, move into the iPads. We have released an iPad, Android, soon to be launched Windows mobile app for Mathrubhumi, which is Kerala's second largest newspaper. We just released in our newsstand app for the same newspaper company. So I think our work will involve go across newspapers, magazines, books. Plus, at some point, I had some friend in the US for whom we have done some educational aid app to be launched in schools, which will get launched in maybe a couple of months. So we are kind of finding our ways around this technology. Some of the things we do overlap with what Jagdish does or Jay does or Rich does. But I think we are kind of focused on Indian language and maybe Indian writing rather than the international market. So we have some limited scope at the moment. But once our platform is ready, maybe in another few months, we hope to deploy it across a larger. So that's summary of what.
That's great, Dilip. We'll come back to that to talk upon your experience working with Mathrubhumi and how you handle regional language issues. So it will be, I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in learning more about that. Okay.
Hi, I'm the non-technology person on the panel. I'm a publisher.
You can't use that as an excuse here.
No, I've been telling this from the day one that I don't have any experience in the technology side of things. So I'm a publisher. I'm a co-founder of a very small publishing house called Manta. We do comic books and graphic novels. And because of the very nature of comic books and the screen size you need to actually read a comic book, I've actually been technology agnostic and not touched the ebook platform, though it's huge. For example, Comixology, the international app, is the app has got the most amount of revenue on the iPad. So that's like the biggest app in the iPad, and still it's difficult to get into Comixology because they've got so many publishers. But there's a huge barrier in terms of, as comics, we're doing very niche things. And I haven't probably searched and I haven't seen a good example of a good iPad app for a comic that's come from an Indian company so far, because most of them don't read comics. So then how do you go to that space? So, but there's this comment that was there on piracy, and I think like you were saying about how publishers basically ban you guys on the issue of piracy. And
right, I mean, yesterday we talked about how the pie is small, right? And then we are acting as cops within that small pie, right? So
yeah, I'm just wondering, see, when I was working in a startup animation firm about 2 years ago, and they wanted to basically do animation and teach math to kids. And the founder of that company said, you basically asked, so the question is, what about piracy? And he was saying, if my CDs are pirated and kept on, in front of malls and sold, I'm the most happiest person, because that means your product is that popular. And even for comics, see, you cannot escape the fact that maybe 100% of people sitting here have actually got one pirate song in your collection somewhere. I'm just saying it's possible, maybe it's not possible. But see, I grew up in an engineering college where all the software are pirated. The entire IT industry in India and the entire engineers in India are built on the fact that they had access to Windows pirated software on their computer, and that's how they learned it. You can't escape the fact, right? So, and I know, probably I'm going to get beaten up for this, but no, my point is, see, as a company, Flipkart right now recently started this thing called Flight, in which you can buy music for as cheap as 25 rupees an album. And earlier, where one would actually go and pirate that same album, you were paying 25 rupees. I mean, I'm more than happy to pay because you're making it accessible. Like when iTunes came out with 99-cent thing, and they don't bring it out in India. But I any day want to go and spend 45 rupees on a song because I think it's worth it. So even like my comics, I'm very sure. Like when I went in Calcutta in last year, we had a session in Oxford. I was telling people, see, we're going to put it up online. You want to pirate it, fine, go ahead. For me as a small niche publisher, that's what I want. I want you to actually read my book. What is the point of the book sitting in a bookstore which nobody's reading? And I'm going to again, probably against Sayoni or children's book publisher, they think me, but I mean, everybody talks about the children's book not being read, and it's expensive and all of that. Fine. But if you look at the music industry, they basically didn't touch it. They said, we won't do MP3, we'll kill Napster. And look at what's happening. Bands are going like 9 inch nails, they give music out for free. And they still make money. The entire webcomics model is basically based on the fact that you read comics free every day, but people come and donate, people come and pay, people buy the print books. I mean, I'm sure that Harper and Hachette and Mantelli would make our money if people, I mean, we're very small, so we don't have the big pockets, but big publishers would still make money if the book is sold in stores and if it's pirated. Because of the very fact that a book is so popular that people want to pirate it. Is Chetan Bhagat making less money because he's being pirated? No. So, I mean, I'm on this side, I'm on this side with you guys. I mean, why DRM? Why have such a huge thing when there's such a big pie and you're fighting against each other to, no, we won't do electronic because, people pirate it. I think it's a bogus argument. I don't agree to it at all. Sorry, I'm being very vocal on this one.
Great, thanks a lot, guys. So, the format I was thinking, like, I had this list of questions. I got most of you from you guys, and then I can ask those questions with these gentlemen. But I would rather open this up because I see a lot of long faces. It's second day, second half, right? So, why don't we just get into the war stories, right? Go ahead, please. Microphone.
I go by model.
Please state your name and.
My name is Manish, and I represent. I have my own STM publishing brand called Anamya Publishers. And last year we set up a publishing consultancy called Veda Publishing Consultancy. Manoj spoke in the morning, my colleague. See, the thing is, I want to believe the rosy picture that you are painting, but the moot point is, why do you need us publishers? There are authors out there in the market. You get an author, you develop an app or a product and sell it. You get a customer, publishers will learn a lesson. I don't understand this whole point, asking publishers for content. You want products which have already been proven in the printed market, and then you want to sell it to a wider audience. Just cut the publisher out of the whole thing. It's a bigger pie. Right? You actually don't need us or the content that we have. We die out as it is.
But isn't Amazon doing it already?
Yeah, Amazon is doing it.
So then, like, I was just talking to Rahul from Penguin, and he's talking, Amazon's got this new thing where they're actually taking print books, and they're saying, you give it to us, you don't need the publisher.
Exactly.
And we'll print it and we'll share revenues.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the future you're facing, right?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that future, but the moot point is you keep on asking for content from publishers. Right? You don't ask for it. You just go to an author, get that content, you become the publisher, you invest in it, and you sell it. That's the perfect one.
No, but there is a lot of content already there, right? Whose rights? It's like you can start from scratch and create everything in that new form.
So they don't want to start from scratch. Basically, the moot point is you go to a publisher and say, you are controlling information which can go into a free flow, it will generate money. I would much rather say, do it with a product and show it to me. The way when we started publishing, we went to an author and said, give me my first book, I'll produce it nicely, and we went to 10 other prospective authors saying, I'll do the same for you. Maybe one another believed me.
The thing is, there are two models. Some people are doing it with original content, some people are doing it with...
Mantel
I don't
is
think
doing
there
with
is any
original
blaming
content.
people.
Do you want to answer by using your Pothi.com experience? Please go ahead. Add some.
So I think when you entered publishing, so publishing as an industry and all the business models were already established for hundreds of years. So it was, so although you had to go out and get new content and basically work from the scratch, not denying that part, but still it was pretty clear how the money is going to flow, all the processes are there, all the support system is there. A lot of these people are trying out new things where these things are not clear. So you can take both the risks together. You can take the business model risk plus the content risk plus the market risk. But it's better if you are tackling one at a time. So I'm sure that, for example, Prateek is doing it with original content, but doing it with proven content and first getting the business model right is a better way of doing it.
I would put it the other way. Today, the technology and the delivery platforms are there. Amazon has a delivery platform. Authors are directly going and self-publishing. It's an opportunity where the printed word is going to the readers. Only readers win. And it's an opportunity that authors are grabbing and going to technology providers like us or anybody else and getting it published and making money. In my opinion, it's an opportunity for the other side. For the publishers, this is a platform which you can use or not use. I don't think now a lot of, I'm not talking for myself, a lot of companies are going and saying, I want to grab your content and then I will sell it and make money. I think the idea is show that this technology and platform works either by taking authors' content and doing it or publishers' content. We are going to people who you are the experts. It's not because I think we want to take content and then it's more like this technology is working around the world. We want to show this technology is working through authors or publishers or the like. I think it's up to publishers now also to decide, do we also try this out and see whether it impacts your bottom line, top line, and for which if you feel it's more like a partnership and then you try it out and if both everybody succeeds, it's great. Why not? So it's more like the technology exists. The technology will deliver content to the readers, whether publishers like it or not. It's up to publishers, the old ones, the new ones, to now see whether you embrace it, you kind of work in parallel to it, or kind of find new ways of making this work. It's my view.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something that Pearson has done. I don't know how many people are following the papers. Penguin just bought a self-publishing company. You know, so I mean, so you know, but all of these you need to understand in the scale of things.
So Srinivas, on that point, I mean, when you have inside information on that, right? What was the motivation for buying a print on demand, which kind of like undercuts your main author relationship model, right?
Not really.
No. Okay, how?
So that's just the point. You know, at the heart of it, you know, what do sort of any publishing house best represent? You know, it's ways of monetizing IP. Okay. Now there are many models that you can work. There are established models like our friend here just mentioned, and then there are new ones that, you know, the whole internet and the device world is creating dynamically every day. Now, who's to say how the lay of the land will be tomorrow is anybody's guess. But, you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, the level of risk that one could possibly take could be of a scale that could probably hit his current breadwinner. So, you know, we do experiments, and I believe many people, big and small, are experimenting, but, you know, these take time. There has to be a tipping point where you see value enough where you will totally surrender IP or not surrender IP. It's not an either or. And it's like the many shades of grey or something that, you know, popular these days. But I'm just saying, you know.
So we know a lot of experiments on the content side, right? I mean, Hunger Games, 50 Shades of Grey. What are the experiments you would like to see on the technology side? Can you share some perspective on that?
See, the fundamental thing about at least what I see within India is, first of all, when people say publish, the only interpretation publish seems to have is to see ink on paper. First of all, you need to distinguish that fundamental difference. Publish means could be in any form, could be audio, video, website, app, you name it. First of all, that's the big difference that sort of needs to get more into the DNA of the thinking process as opposed to just, you know, being verbose about what publishing is. Second is, you know, I'm guilty as charged, as I'm trying to tell now, is, you know, at the end of the day, why is a device or any game so engaging, and why is there a wow that, you know, whether it's a kid or an old guy, they are so hooked onto a Facebook or a Twitter or, you know, an Angry Bird. Now, I don't know if we've been able to do or crack a similar thing from an educational experience standpoint. Today people would wait in a queue, run up, and then if there's a good film, do everything required to do it. But would they do that to get into an operating systems class or a database management class or a history lesson? Where is that wow? A lot of this wow at one point used to be in great temples of education in big universities where you had famous faculty whom you wanted to sit and listen to.
So you mean to say the technology is not able to prove the wow in the knowledge acquisition process? It's showing more of the frills rather than the actual knowledge.
Yeah, a lot of what we do today are really bolt-ons. It's linear storytelling.
I'm not sure. I don't know what operating system, and I don't know how exciting you make C++ for using an app. I don't know. But when iBooks as the iBooks author was first announced, and when they showed the videos, I have not done it per se, but the kind of stuff you can do with children, at least maybe like if you're looking at medical students, okay, an MD or whatever level you're looking at, or doctors, looking at doctors, the kind of images, the kind of videos, the kind of experience, the kind of, the entire way in which that device can transform it.
Well, you're very true. Way before the iBooks came, I think our most famous pharma sort of product line is the Brady books. The biggest use case was the nurses in all the hospitals used it, where they didn't. Have you seen the pharmacy directory that in all the pharma shops? So if you say here's paracetamol, it will tell you who are the 20 manufacturers and what brands they operate in. Now that's something like a Bible in every medical shop. A similar sort of solution we developed, and it was run on any smart device sort of an app. Now again, as an outsider who doesn't know medicine, you see a wow in it. But if you are a doctor, do you see that as a use case, and is that driving your usage is what is critical. Here's where you need to make the distinction. I don't believe that today we have done enough to drive that.
So we'll take it as a challenge for next time.
Yeah.
Okay, as a publisher, I'm kind of representing the publishing side of things. I'm a little fed up by now, and I must be honest since everybody's being honest. Fed up by now of this great opportunity that is projected by techies. Okay? And don't get me wrong, because I am a very tech savvy person. I love technology, I'm an early adapter to it and whatever else. But I think essentially this whole talk of, it's going to benefit the authors, publishers are not needed and all. I think that kind of completely disregards what publishers do as what is their role, what do they really do. And I'm not talking about the big brands who are under market pressures. I'm talking about a sizable set of publishers, especially in India, and that's why we are a cottage industry, who bring who keep certain ideas and certain cultural aspects of our identity in currency. And I think when technologists want to enter this domain, because they do want to enter this domain, it's not like the publishers are going to the technologists. Increasingly, it's the technologists who want to come into the domain and offer services, solutions, advice, futuristic predictions and whatnot. Since they want to come in, I think it's imperative that they understand how this business has worked in the past, historically, and how it's working currently, because everything is now changing, and we all want to embrace it. You will not find a single publisher here who will say that they don't want to look at digital delivery of their content. I think that's a fallacy. The problems that publishers encounter is many of them do not own their copyrights. Okay, it's the authors who own copyrights. We are custodians of authors' copyrights. So it's not as simple as publisher is not interested. We have to go back. If it's the backlist that we have to digitize, then there's a whole process for it. If the front list has to be digitized, now everyone is gearing up for it. And you guys talk to us in a language that we just don't understand. XML, metadata, EPUB, HTML5. I mean, please, it's like confusing for that poor publisher who should only be making books. I mean, he shouldn't have to sit there and wonder what the hell is all this happening, and it keeps changing.
We'll get back to the full answer, but why does Facebook or Twitter doesn't require any learning and XML requires learning?
I don't know.
That's probably for the techies to answer. We need more product management.
I think that's actually something that you have to answer. Like when you talked about, no, why don't you go to authors directly? I think publishers are curators of content, and they're not the content. They don't know the best authors in the business. They don't know what I'm saying is, see, if someone came to Vinanta as a publisher and the techie comes to you and talks to you about why, which books do you have, because you know which book works best, probably, which would work for a device best. Like, I mean, that's not their job, that's why probably they come to publishers. But totally, I think
I see two problems in that statement you made. One is that techies need to understand the workflow which is embedded in the publishing process.
Not just that, the vision with which a publishing company works and the way that, we all talk about, distribution is a mess, but nobody understands this unless you actually are in the business, why it is a mess, and there's no one single answer for it. It has also got to do with the historical way in which publishing industry has developed, and we should all change it. We all want to change it, we all suffer with it. Okay, it's not like we're all sitting here with our hands on our laps and saying, oh, someone else will change it. We all want to do it. But coming back, sorry, I'm just going to finish because others have questions in this fold. Jagdish,
yes.
I take strong objection to this, and I have to put it out to you because you are, coming into this industry and you're new to it. But I don't think you can say that a book does not give, sensory experience. It may not give touch experience, yes, but a lot of us readers who have read print books are able to have an imaginative experience, a visualizing experience, which is far beyond any gadget experience. So I think if you're going to come to publishers and tell us this...
Well, the reason I didn't read was because they were boring. They didn't give me a sense of...
I understand that, but I nevertheless...
You have to go out of the room. So can I just step in here? I think the general intention that the direction the conversation seems to be going is publishers versus technology. I don't think that is the intention.
He's getting caught in the crossfire, huh?
Yeah. Because I don't think that's the intention of this conversation.
These are not good with words. Just take it
aside.
To speak continuously for 15 minutes without any problem. I admire it. I think techies can really...
So we take that as a kind of like points to tackle in the next session, right? So whenever that happens, the next year probably, right? So.
May I speak on behalf of the author? Because the content is going from the author. Well, as far as the author is concerned, we'll be happy whether it's a publisher or whether it's an ebook techie. We'll be happy if the content is taken by the techie also. And as far as children and the reader is concerned, I have seen my grandchildren, always stuck to the iPad or to the mobile or to the computer. And if they get their content through the iPad, if we as authors are able to work as a team with the techie, and maybe if we can provide good content to him, I think that is what really matters, and not whether it's done through print or through the e-book or whatever you techies call it. I think as far as the author and the reader is concerned, there are both ways that can be very useful and appreciated by the child readers.
Just one comment I want to make. So when Shobha was presenting about the ebook thing, I think, and all of you probably sort of agree that publishing has been sort of a business which has been passed on by generations. I think one thing which is lacking is probably innovation, and that's what that is imbibed in the culture of publishing. I think that can change a lot of things, and technology is an enabler. So think of technology which enables in adopting innovation and help us take on that path, basically. That's what I would say, and not say that publishing.
Sharing.
I think I'm a publisher with no valuable backlist, don't have a list to be compromised, so I'm very eager to embrace every possible digital option. Now what's stopping me are two things.
apart from books being boring and all that. Two things. One is, as an independent children's publisher, my budgets are severely limited. Okay, so yes, of course, what text-only books we are doing, they are being published simultaneously in print and digital version. But when it comes to creating enhanced content, and a lot of the enhanced content which I think is currently being created in India, is kind of done for the sake of doing it. There is nothing intrinsic in the product which justifies the digital format. We have to imagine the book in a different way. Now, that is something which really I personally am incapable of. I read a lot of books in digital format, so I know what I like. But how that works with the technology aspect of it is something I'm completely ignorant of. And again, because I have limited budgets and because it's very hard to, all of us are eventually doing this for the money. I don't expect Bridge to give up 3 months of his time to sit with me and hold my hand and say, there, this is what we can do. So I think that is somewhere which is the problem. Because we don't, I won't speak for the collective, I don't have an idea of, say, if I have 50,000 bucks to spend, what kind of formats, what is possible with that? And again, when I'm talking about digital personally speaking, when I'm talking about it, I want to create free apps. I'm not looking at things which I can sell at all, because I realize that to create a truly fantastic product of the kind that I'd be proud to put my name to, I need considerably larger budgets, which I don't have. So I think somewhere the basic information is lacking, and I don't know where to go find it.
Okay, we'll look for some ideas. Adish, you want to add something?
So one thing which you mentioned, there is a solution right there in the problem, that there is no money. I think that's what drives innovation. What Suzanne said yesterday, that Pratham is actually printing 2 rupee books because there's a problem of price with audience, and they cannot afford much pricier books. So they came up with a solution to that by offering 2 rupee books to have literacy in front of every kid.
Yeah, but as Suzanne also said, Pratham's priorities are perhaps different. I mean, their point is giving access. So the individual book itself is not that important. A single book is not that important, possibly, as to some other trade publishers, say Tara, okay, for whom each book is a carefully curated object. So for Tara, for example.
Suzanne just came, so she can.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is, so basically, like when we say that necessity is the mother of all invention, in all of these scenarios, price is a factor, but that's not the deciding factor. Once we start thinking about an experience, as you're saying that I want to build these books. So let's say there's an ecosystem. We can probably find 2 people right here who can illustrate a very good picture book. So you can find, there are 5 technicians sitting in front of you, you can actually animate it right there in a day or 2 days for you.
Okay, so let me talk to Pratik about this, right? Pratik, I mean, you being the original content creator, right? I mean, you're like, you can't walk away by saying that you're not techie.
Okay.
You know enough technology, right?
Yeah.
So how do you break down your content into pieces which can be monetized as well as executed without compromising creativity?
No, I don't think that's the question that Sharon is asking.
I understand what
No, see, I'll ask you a question, like the 4 of you. I mean, Jay is not in audiobooks. You're in audiobooks, and that's not what she's addressing also. The 3 of you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say she's got 50,000 rupees, okay, and she has this book. She understands her book very well, and that's why you're going to her, because she understands her book, her market, her customer, everyone very well. She knows what kind of experience probably she wants to give in the book when you bring it out in a digital format. Are you willing to actually put down 50,000 bucks, match her contribution to this, and then develop them together and take stakes together? Because I think that's what even a small publisher, like I have no budget. I mean, and I've got comics, yes, but that's what I think.
Let's say I can't expect any of these 3 lovely gentlemen to actually volunteer their time for a free app where
if you're volunteering, it's wrong approach actually, right? I mean,
what I'm saying is with the kind of budgets that are currently available to me. I'm sorry, I don't make it sound like my first date.
But see, there are companies coming. They are having model which can address small publishers, right? I mean, we are not equipped to handle you guys at this point, right? I mean, let's face it, we are doing it because we know each other, right? But I think the bigger platform vendors like Amazon and Google are in a better position to kind of like bring in small publishers. They can justify the investments by large volume of writers and publishers, right? But you got to agree to the creative compromises, right? It's a template approach.
Can I just chip in?
So while the mic is there, Jaya, I'd like to say a little something. Shani, I think there's two pieces that happen. I mean, I'm speaking a little bit on my behalf and possibly a little bit on behalf of the technology companies. So what happens when we take the rights for an audiobook is we are actually stumping up that entire 50,000 rupees. We just sign a contract, go out with the printed book, and at some weeks later come back with a completely finished book which is available for delivery. I think the technology equivalent of that perhaps is the time, effort, money, sweat, whatever, for second salary that the technology companies put together to build out the platform or the capability, what he has developed in Mango Reader and so on. And at some point you want to start getting some return, which is why I think sometimes the question is of can we meet halfway and have both. I don't know if that addresses. Okay. So,
So, okay, just to give a quick introduction, I'm from Poti.com and we actually work with individual authors all the time, and even the kind of budget you're talking about is not available, right? So, we are right now at a stage where none of these things are really proven business-wise. We have to accept that, right? And that is creating problems on both sides. How much do you come back or how much budget do you give? And I think as technology entrepreneurs, we are very familiar and comfortable with the models of freemium or generally working with the customer to develop solutions. And what I'm seeing here is a lot of disconnect. So what do they want versus what we have, and the disconnect is totally there. So probably some of us have to be willing to volunteer that time and money for free for the first book, and that is fine, right? Because that is a concept testing for us. So something like that has to happen. And as publishers, you should probably know that techies are very aware of this concept. It's okay to ask for a free pilot of a limited, of course, given limited commitment. You can't take them for a ride or whatever. So if you are that confused, it's okay. I mean, maybe they won't agree depending on what stage they are on. Maybe somebody has already proven it and they won't do it for you. That is one point. Secondly, not every technology is developed for all kinds of content. So when we talk of text-only content, there are a lot of tools available in the market which are do-it-yourself kind.
But many of us are talking about that.
No, that's what I'm saying. So the thing is, those tools are available, and maybe for your kind of thing, the tools are not available yet. So we probably have to live with it. That probably in a lower budget, you won't be able to go all out there, and that's fine. I mean, with time, tools will come for that also, and then probably we can go ahead with that. So I guess expecting answers right here from any of the sides is kind of difficult. I mean, the answers don't exist.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
A very brief comment. Because I do not belong to the fraternity of publishers, I feel a bit confused. As far as I understand, the word book itself means in the English dictionary a thing which is bound. Please correct me. Beginning with quarto, folio, the term book is a physical object which is bound, and it comes from the binding industry, the origin of the word. So, is that word applicable to what you give? To my mind, it is not, because I have not seen children, stitching computer screens together. So it has to be a different. It must acquire a different name. I'm not denying you that name. All that I'm saying is, say you are the Mahabharata recited in some ashram. It was not a book. It was acted, danced. Then it was also a book in Bhandarkar Institute in Pune. Then it is in television. Then it's film. It's in. So what you are doing, which is surely very fascinating, but it is different than what publishers are doing. And therefore, the two need not be seen as this or that, a challenge.
Point taken.
This has to be accepted.
So I'll just stop at this point and go on to the next topic.
Could I please shift the emphasis a little bit? Because I'm very concerned about this polarization into us and them, and publishers and authors and techies who translate that into public access formats, etc. I think we have to look at something else also as we talk through all this. Taking off from what Vinuta said, that sort of hit me, that often, as an industry, if this could be called an industry, that maturity regarding the contents of what we adopt to put into the public domain, this kind of standards of excellence, I don't know what term to use, but some sort of a mutual vetting and a mutual dialoguing and a mutual exchange has to be there to make this stuff better and better. Now, one field of electronic communication which I'm very well aware of is this whole business about selling DVDs to schools with educational content. There are 3 or 4 major players in this field. They've kind of almost monopolized and carved out the territories amongst themselves, and they make the most mediocre stuff. They make the most horrible stuff. Okay, and as a filmmaker, I have also been commissioned by one of these companies to do something, and so I said, show me what you've been doing before so I get the context. It's just degrading, and it is because it is being handed over to people who know only technology. They don't know history, they don't know culture, they don't know language, they don't know music. They just put some bing bang effects and it's a PowerPoint which has been animated. It's nothing else. So
Great
in
point,
terms of,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't want to sound derogatory about those who practice technology, but I'm saying that amongst this kind of a discourse or dialogue, content should play the, content and approach and the kind of ideology with which you're bringing the stuff into the public arena is a very important concern, and I think we should really put it at the top of our list. Just quickly, I know that there's a 50-year-old comic book company in this country which has got a huge legacy, and I think somebody associated with that company spoke yesterday on the panel. The stuff is communal. This stuff is full of the worst stereotypes. All the villains are dark-skinned. All the heroes are fair. It's like, it's disgusting. And I don't understand why an e-commerce company today is recycling all those awful stereotypes.
We'll make those characters a little fairer using technology. Right?
No.
So I'll come back to that point.
It's very important.
Yeah, point taken, but it's kind of like goes beyond the scope of the discussion. So I want to switch topic. I'll come back to you. So the other point I want to touch upon, and Dilip, you have some experience on that, which is regional publishing, and how the workflow around it is different from English publishing and the language issues, font issues. Bhanesha, do you want to just comment on the book you published and the font issues you ran into and how technology should be addressed, and or just comment on that?
We've just been creating a bilingual ebook in EPUB 3, which is, I'm sure most people know, is the new technology, the newest ebook standard. One massive problem we faced, although I have met lots of people here who say that they are developing or have developed an ebook reading platform for Indian languages, but one massive problem is that only iBooks really truly supports Indian scripts. As well as all of the other capabilities that EPUB 3 offers, like audio and images and pop-up footnotes and glossary entries and so on. When we looked at the Android platform, for instance, there are readers that do support Indian scripts, but they often then don't support diacritical marks, which are the marks you use for transliterated Indian languages, or they don't support audio. So there was no reader which was able to do everything. On the Kindle platform, of course, there's just no support for Indian languages at all, just full stop. I haven't looked at others like BlackBerry and so on, but so this is, I think, maybe because of the American-centric ebook publishing world, this is a problem that we face. So if you guys have any comments on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there is a lot of, we are not experts on Indian language rendering. We have only worked on a few languages, Malayalam, Tamil, Hindi, and of course English. And we have not done Indian language EPUB 3 yet, because we are just starting to create support for EPUB 3 right now. But the traditional EPUB where we worked on Indian language, Malayalam, Tamil, we had this problem mainly on, not so much on iOS, because we used Apple's native rendering since iOS 5 to support Indian languages. But on Android, we had a lot of problems. So we had to have a runtime translation for some fonts into ASCII and then render it on the Android. So that was a little bit problematic, and it was more a trial and error where we worked with the publishing companies' experts. Because when we worked with, for example, not just with me, they had a font expert in their company who kind of did a lot of scripting for the font, changed the font itself so that it could render correctly. So I don't think we had all the solutions for it. We worked with the publishers, font expert, and our technical guys together to solve some. It's not all solved yet. Even today, I can see in some of our renderings, we see the Chillaksharam or some of these special characters change into some strange characters in the text. So, but we kind of can read it. In the first instance, when we went with our ebook to publisher and showed, yeah, it works fine. He said, what works fine? That is wrong, this is wrong, that is not correct. We never saw that there are problems in the font rendering. Because as long as I could understand the text, I didn't care whether the fonts were. But they kind of ripped apart the ebook. And so then we worked 3 months. So I don't think we have a full solution. But on every book we have worked together with.
So this has been a kind of like a custom approach, right?
Custom. Because the numbers we work with are quite low. We could afford to spend.
We had
How did this work for Wink?
Yeah, so Wink has by far the best Indian language support, but because of their adoption and lack of distribution, it didn't come out very well. So I want to just
I
ask
talk about Winks. So traditionally, all non-Latin script edits are supposed to have font embedding. Yeah, so if you embed the original font that the DTP person has used to write the text, and that font de-embedding is supported in the reader. In fact, Barnes & Noble, it's an American ebook reader, now reads with our ebooks, it reads Bengali, Hindi, Malayalam. It's because you go to an options in Barnes & Noble, you can say use, I think, publisher font. If you enable that, it automatically gives you that. And Wink supports it. A lot of the new readers support.
That's why I want to ask Jagdish, I mean, how is he taking this problem? I mean, you have a HTML5 reader, right? So I think it's relatively easier to kind of navigate the font issue, right? So do you want to share your experience on that?
Sure. So actually EPUB 3 supports font embedding, even EPUB 2 supports that, and we have built the HTML5 reader, which means that you don't need a native reader for any device, you can just use the browser for that. And we successfully tested Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi fonts. The only thing is that you need to get the raw font who the author has used for either the PDF or the. So in your case, I think you have the fonts. You can actually embed those in the EPUB 3 file and just use the browser to render those.
But even if you embed fonts, what we found is even if you embed fonts in iBooks, even if you embed fonts in iBooks, the reader has an option to switch from one font to another. And at least in iBooks, you can't embed Devanagari fonts and possibly other Indian language fonts. You can only embed fonts for Roman script.
Agree, because iBooks has restrictions on the fonts, and the EPUB format is also not EPUB 3 for them as such. They have restrictions on the, they have their own sort of format which is similar to EPUB 3.
For Devanagari and others, I think the best for the iPad is to have a native reader application, which maybe works on HTML5 or anything, or maybe a browser-based
So the solution is HTML5 supports Unicode, and that basically takes care of all the fonts. For specifics, I can definitely give you some ideas on how we are solving it, and hopefully that will.
Okay, do you have something to add?
Just a short comment. So basically, I think one of the things, so sorry if it is going too much into the technical discussion, I think one of the important points here is the underlying platform supports the complex text layout for the Indian script. So you might have the font, but still all your matras and things, they won't render correctly unless until there is a support. So it might be HTML5 being rendered in the browser, or it might be an app. None of that is going to help. So I think the iOS now has support for that Indian language support, and I think Badri was mentioning that even in the Android, on which all these smartphones and Nook is based,
Jelly Bean onwards.
Yeah, Jelly Bean onwards, it is supported. Yeah. So after that, basically both the apps and browser should be fine.
I think one of the issues that I'm facing right now here is, I know all of this, okay. I know iOS, I know EPUB, but I mean, as a publisher, right? See, we have a content which we give. Let's say we partner with the app team, and you develop it, and then suddenly you have the new version which comes out, which is Jelly Bean or Ice Cream Sandwich or EPUB 3 and EPUB 4, and then the entire thing goes to another revisal. And how long? And we don't have the kind of bandwidth to keep doing that, right? I mean, I'm sure that publishers, I don't know how other publishers face it, or if it's just the Devanagari font or the Indian font face it, but I think regular publishers, every time you change a version, how do you keep upgrading the same book for each reader? And you know how?
In an ideal world, there will be tools for that. Right now, we are just
That's
not
what
there.
they call innovation. So
We are just not there right now. Hopefully we will be.
Keeping away had some question that you settled with.
Okay. I just wanted to, actually not a question for you guys, but to the publishers in the audience, that I'm sure editorial as a, basic processing has gone through phenomenal changes in the last 100, 200 years since the time publishing started. So publishers initially used to do all manual script, copy editing used to happen manually, versions were maintained, then the computers came, then the cork press and the other softwares. So the whole publishing itself went through a lot of changes, right? Why can't and why are they or are they not? It's a question. Looking at this digitization and even the fact that content that gets developed for a book, for a device, for an ebook also would need to be probably different. Can't be the same. Everything can't be an app, everything cannot be an ebook, everything doesn't need to be a mobile app. So in the content development, are there processes being put in place to say, okay, this is the digital content development team, have a small animation unit there? Of course, give your content out for animating, but are we even thinking about developing on those lines?
Srinivas, you want to?
Yeah. There are sort of two approaches whenever you do something like this. You can take the boutique approach, proof of concept, and say, okay, how does this work? If I want to do an app, I want to publish something on the website, or I want to create some sort of animation that goes on a CD. So you can think of any particular use case and then see how the workflow, the organization of the team, the process, the skill sets, and the partnerships you'll strike, all of those, and then the math of how the P&L will get structured. Trouble is that at the end of the day, they will remain boutique if it's not scalable and replicable. Okay, so there needs to be some sort of standardization. There was a time, even today, at least a large number of people, the final end product is primarily at this point a book. Okay, now all that we do in the name of supplements, websites, apps seem to be a bolt-on or a derivative, or I've got this, now what can I do more with it? Now, but in reality, the most successful ones are ones where you first envision what the final product is. And today, in a world where you said bulk of it is book, now we will also do this, you are now suddenly looking at a production house that says, okay, my end product is going to be an app, and what I'm going to make money is through advertising. And you have the same sort of editorial team who also has to think and say, no, the end product is going to be a website, and then what I'm going to do is because people doing simulations or experiments on it. Now, that kind of an extremely complex, team structure and all of that are at this point being experimented internally. Now, you don't have processes, P&L structures that we can take to scale. It's all very nascent. We understand that that's how at some point probably things would evolve, but I at this point don't think it's at the stage where we can say that's the norm and the print workflow that we have is a dinosaur. Far from it.
Satya.
This is a question for you, techies. Now, in the US,
coming from a former techie.
In the US, the platforms are all owned by the tech companies, whether it's Amazon or Apple or Kobo or whoever. Now, in India, Flipkart, which is a retailer but with a substantial tech backing, is trying to develop a similar platform. Now, do any of you think it's worthwhile to develop such a platform yourselves, or do you expect that let the retailers do it and get away with it, or let some publisher do it and get away with it?
Sure, I can speak from my experience, right? I think pretty much everybody on this side has that ambition, right? It all comes down to like P&L and distribution, whether we have the kind of like the funding to do some experiments which can go wrong, right? I always go back to what went wrong with Wink, right? When it came out, it was a wonderful device, right? It could have been India's kind of like the native answer to Kindle reader, but somehow the market didn't adopt properly, or the distribution problems were there. So I think ambition-wise we're there. That's why I go back to the point of being like either not bold enough or being mediocre, right? So we don't have any like awesome Kobo answer or Nuke answer, right? we want to, but I think kind of the ecosystem is not fully established.
Yeah, just to add to that, one thing is like in US, as you said, all these tech companies own platforms because they are good at building technology, and I believe publishers are good at producing content and creativity. So as long as they, like if I am good at technology and I do technology, that will be an awesome thing, and the marriage can happen together by collaboration. The moment I try to build content, I'll build an educom with really poor content and no really substantial value. The moment you try to build technology, I think that will be just investment without really any return or such. So the key is really doing what we are good at and really identifying these ecosystem players and partner with them and then use the technology as an enablement for distribution, for building, and for sort of creativity.
Jagdish, I'm sorry, Dilip, do you want to answer like why we don't have our own Kobo and MOOC?
Yeah, I think there were two experiments on. Satya, you were talking more about reader or from the platform, the publishing, e-publishing platform?
Both. I mean, having a reader app, a reader device is required, but that's not important anymore.
Correct.
But the platform where publishers can come and list and consumers can buy, that's more important than the app.
Yeah, I agree that at some point when a large leader in the Indian e-book retailing space appears, it might be Amazon with the FDA and other things. But I feel that maybe smaller companies like ours who are preparing some technology platforms for this, all this will coexist because there will be publishers who may not, because of their presence, their size, etc., may not directly go to a platform provided by the likes of Flipkart or Amazon. So, and there might be mixes and matches where one would be acquired by the other, etc. I think each based on where you are present, because India is such a large country with such a large number of, I would say, languages and publishers. I'm sure that there is space for multiple, maybe focused platforms to exist. For example, for a children's book, which directly, a book platform that directly creates on one button an app and an ebook, that for it might still exist while a large platform already runs on a large e-commerce company. I feel these two will.
And Satya, also there's a cultural angle also to this, right? I mean, USA, Canada, to some extent, like they are more open to kind of like nice to have content consumption, right? Whereas in India, content is very much tied to the education or academic. It must have a utility value, right? So, I mean, if the readers are going to come, platforms are going to come, they're going to come from academic background. Right?
In fact, when we started Great Minds, we wanted to create an ebook reader like the Wink. We bought the Wink. We talked to Chinese vendors to understand how they manufacture. We got some samples. Then we stopped that project because we felt creating an ebook reader when the tablets are just coming. This is just 12 months ago. We kind of stopped that project thinking that it would be a waste of money if we spend 1 year in creating an ebook reader. By then there will be cheaper and better devices out there. So I think hardware, I feel it might be where the international players or the larger players who will play with it. But yeah, reader apps, etc. I am sure there's space for all.
Yeah, because I think hardware is irrelevant today.
I'd also say, Satya, I mean, if you don't mind, just a little the reason or what will happen is kind of similar to why don't we have a Mercedes-Benz or a Mickey Mouse coming out of India. But today at least we have a Flipkart, which everybody talks about in such high terms. So something will also convert to that.
Okay, the point is not so much about an Indian company. The point is, if one retailer becomes dominant, okay, like the case of the US where Amazon is dominant, okay, and I can clearly see that, it's probably going to be a two-horse race here between Flipkart and Amazon. Flipkart is going to get the first mover advantage because Amazon is stuck with some regulatory issues and all that. And maybe Apple might try, but I doubt that they will try. They've probably given up on that even in any other part of the country other than the US. They own the data, okay, of all the customers. So it's a network effect. So the more customers there are, more customers want to go to that platform, more publishers want to list on that platform. So there will be a lot of nice technology available with the smaller players, but you won't have customers. So
it's a great point. I mean, we'll be all living in the long tail, and then the top will be all.
Yeah. So right now is a time when nothing has really taken off yet. So if somebody wants to invest in creating this is probably the best time. And for them, given the fact that at least for Flipkart, they are now slowly shifting focus away from books. So there may be time for somebody else to catch up, but not with Amazon, because they've already invested so much in technology and their understanding is so good that when they want to do it, they can do it overnight pretty much.
Great, thanks for the point.
Like he said, we can't know what tomorrow will bring, but I have sort of a guess. I'm giving the whole concept of ownership of content by anyone about 10 years maximum at the outside. I mean, I think like it's going to be the case very soon where if you want to read a book, you just pull it off the cloud. I mean, I think that's already happening on YouTube. If you want to, you remember some song that you used to know, you just look it up on YouTube and you can hear it. And the weird thing is that that's not, that same availability that's there for a lot of Western music is not there for like older Indian songs or folk music especially. So I'm sort of interested in a little bit farther future than Amazon and Flipkart. Like, what can we do to address some of Vinuta's concerns about, like, when everything is available by torrent or anyway, you can just access whatever content exists in this sort of vast human library that we're creating on the net. Like, how are we going to be able to promote local language literature and folk music and that kind of stuff, which sort of is in danger of getting drowned in all this like noisier modern technology, if that makes any sense.
I can attempt to answer that. I think there are a couple of very interesting projects going on. I don't know if you have followed Wattpad.com, right? I would strongly encourage everybody to look at Wattpad.com. It's kind of like a YouTube for writing, right? And it's a very fascinating project where you can almost see the dynamics getting played out, right? The authors and how some authors kind of surface up based on the peer recommendation and reader feedback, and they get picked up by publishers, right? So I think they represent kind of like the 10-year out future, right? And the awesome aspect of that is that, I mean, if you look at the very rare culture, hard to find videos now getting found on the YouTube, I think similar dynamics will come on Wattpad, where rare literature, I mean, just 100 people supporting one author model. So I'm pretty optimistic about that.
But looking at it from a content point of view, as a reader, I've used Wattpad. I'll just say that I don't need
wattpad.com.
I've used it and I've read books. Even the classics which are there on Wattpad, right? They are full of errors. I wouldn't want to go back and read it again.
Just give it some time.
Yeah, it's like Wikipedia, right? I mean, when they started off, they didn't have a lot of credible sources to edit it. But I think these things, actually, all over time, when you have still a community-driven thing, Goodreads or YouTube have a lot of crap and everything. But now they've hit that critical mass where people are contributing to it. So I think platforms like that, the community-driven, especially take time to build up. But if they catch on, it builds up.
Yes, we only have 2 minutes now. So
I get a feeling that no one wants to ask this question bluntly, but what everyone is saying, what happens to us poor guys publishers? Are we extinct? Are we kind of going to be wished away? I think technology is hugely disruptive, and regardless of what Venuta says, whether we want it or not, it's going to come and sweep us and change us. Okay, this is a law of evolution. If you want, let me sound Darwinian. But we have to redefine ourselves, okay? We have to redefine ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we adding to the reader? And if we've been sitting on a monopoly all these centuries, ever since printing was invented, and creating huge kinds of profits, I'm not saying all publishers are doing it, but some definitely are. And some are working very hard and getting very little for it. But it's time for us to reinvent ourselves, for us to take a new look at technology. And I can understand the debate going on here because it's also a generation thing. The young guys have one perspective and we have another perspective, which is like our prehistoric vision. So, whatever we wish, we cannot wish it away.
We are out of our time now. So, thanks for your time, guys. And thanks for the time listening.
Thank you.